It's been a while, and in fact, it's now May, and I know there's a joke that's supposed to go along with that, but I've never heard the actual Justin Timberlake song. Hey, Planeteers, thanks for your patience. It's been a month, probably more than that, since I last recorded a weekly stack thing. So it's a monthly stack thing. And I am going to talk about just three books from the last month, I guess, or really the last couple of weeks that I really, really liked. And I think you would really like too. Uh, and these are the rules. Every week, unless I'm on vacation, I go to House of Secrets on a Wednesday. That's House of Secrets in Burbank, California. Great shop. And I go through what I've pre ordered and look through the shelves to see if there's something else that maybe I would like. And in this case, I think there was one I picked up that I did suspect I would like, but I forgot to order it. So, and I say that recording, not sure if I did my ordering for May. Anyway, so, yes, first off, let's get it out of the way. Yes, Spider-Man, Superman, with the lead story by Brad Meltzer was terrific. All of that book was fun. And I do realize I forgot that there was officially somewhere in continuity, there is an Earth that Marvel and DC share that only exists in crossovers where they sometimes know each other and sometimes they don't. And I should call out that on the apps on both DC and Marvel side, there is a Blade and Power Girl, Blade and Supergirl crossover that is not yet in print. And on the Marvel app is an Aquaman and it's Jeff crossover, Jeff the Land Shark. Fun stuff. But anyway, I digress. Here we go. So the first thing I'm going to call out is just new as part of the next level from DC, and it is Zatanna, number one. By the time we watch this, it's probably going to be we're ready for Zatanna number two, and this is by Jamal Campbell, who's the writer, artist, and cover artist. And I love this, that it's fun. It understands Zatanna as a book and as a character, and there's some really weird stuff going on, and I like that we're having a resurgence of Zatanna. She's the absolute version of Zatanna is over in Absolute Wonder Woman, and that's an interesting take, but this is fun. This is one from DC Comics. I'm going to keep it short because I'm just kind of catching up. That this has been a book. I'm going to have to do math. 26, 26, so 37 years I've waited for this. I probably did the math wrong. Swamp Thing, what we're now saying is Swamp Thing 89, which is actually, it was issue 88, the issue 88 that should have existed and didn't exist for a variety of reasons. And I don't know if I need to get into the controversy, but I think it's pretty bold that DC finally came back and told Rick Veitch he could end it the way he intended to, or his run, I shouldn't say, because they definitely went on with Swamp Thing after that. But it's by Rick Veitch, Michael Zulli, who unfortunately passed away a few months ago, Vince Locke, and Trish Mulvihill. I think she passed away as well. And you see this is Swamp Thing holding the lamb, because back in time, way back when, there was this arc that Swamp Thing was kind of time lost as he was figuring out who he was in terms of the grand scheme of things. He was the avatar of the green, etc. And then he became the avatar of something bigger, and he went back in time. And it was very clear that as he was going back, like he went to Camelot and they had the Holy Grail, it was very clear that he was part of that somehow. And by going backwards, he had not yet experienced it. And he was supposed to go back in time and encounter Jesus. Now, I'm not going to say Jesus the Christ, the anointed one, perhaps. I think that Rick Veitch was setting it up so that Jesus was going to be a magician, sort of, in the whole scheme of things, which doesn't invalidate divinity at all. Certainly not in the DC universe, where there is clearly a God, just as like in Marvel, there's a one above all. So it was deemed too controversial to do that, and I understand. I don't agree. I wanted to read it then, but I understand that there are people in particular in this country who get very upset when you challenge their vision of who Jesus was, is, will be. And let's throw that aside for a moment. It was a great story curtailed where instead the new team came in and said, oh, he went all the way back to getting in touch with the Neanderthals, which was cool, but that was clearly not where Rick Veitch was going. So DC has now in 2026 said they're going to do 6 issues, not 6 years. Oh no, I can't wait. Because basically this is going back and much of this art has been already completed by Michael Zulli. I believe it's being continued by Vince Locke. I don't I don't know if we're just going to see a couple of issues with Zulli's art and then someone else. I think my understanding is that he had finished at least the layouts for all 6. So it's cool. We're finally seeing that story. The sensibilities of this country, the division in this country is no less. But come on. This is handled fairly well so far, beautifully, and I do love the idea that a character, a superhero, if you will, sure, I'm playing him on the DC game, Swamp Thing, and he's shown up in Injustice as well. That a character who is at its root, no pun intended, just seeking peace, would meet that figure in history that some of us agree was the Prince of Peace. Why there seems to be some kind of disagreement as to what peace means, I don't know. But anyway, if you can go back to your shop and pick this up, Swamp Thing number 88, it's under Black Label, so that you say, no, it's not what's happened to whoever Swamp Thing is now. It's okay. This is just an alternate take on that should have happened in the first place. So this is the one I forgot to order and I picked up because immediately saw that it's Mark Russell, PJ Holden, and JP Jordan on art, and Buddy Baudouin on as letterer. Dog Tag number 1. Now I try to read eclectically. Perhaps if you saw my interview with my friend David Lewis last week, talking about his new book, Body, Soul, and Comics, we acknowledge we read all kinds of things, but one genre in this medium of comics that I don't tend to go towards is war. War comics, Sergeant Rock, I admit, great character. Sergeant Fury, great character. Love the Howling Commandos as a concept. Never really got into any of their stories. So please, forgive me. It's just war has never been a thing for me. But when a good author is, and I consider Mark Russell both writer and an author, I don't know if he's ever written prose, must have, that they, when they tackle war, there must be, you got to at least give it a chance. So I gave Dog Tag number 1 from Mad Cave Studios a chance. And it reminded me very much in spirit, though not quite as funny or mad as this black and white movie I recently saw in the last 6 months that had been on my list for a while, called The Americanization of Emily. And it was directed by Blake Edwards. It was written by Patty Chayefsky, starred James Garner and Julie Andrews. And it was basically about so much of the showmanship of World War II. And that's not a positive. It's just, and I understand, look, it was a necessity. Certainly, I would go into Operation Mincemeat, same thing. There were so many little operations, if you will, that were meant to fool the Axis powers into thinking we were going to do one thing and we did another. So Dog Tag is about that. A journalism major, I guess, or a reporter for a very podunk small town newspaper is asked to write stories while stationed in Dover, England, to make it seem like the Allies really weren't ready for an attack that they were really ready for. And there's a twist at the end of the first issue. It is very clearly, this is a comic grounded in reality. But like I said, I get this sense of if you can look up Americanization of Emily and watch it, do yourself a favor. It really is a great film. But it's, it's got some things to say that people don't necessarily want to think about war. And I was reflecting on that because in Hawaii, I visited Pearl Harbor almost on a whim, which I think is reflects poorly on me that it was more like, well, I'm there, but I was very much overcome by that. World War II being a conflict where we can say, yes, this was a fairly reasonably clearly good versus evil. I don't know how that got blurred since, but there it is. And so, in light of a lot of things going on in the world today, to go back into World War II and see that, yes, there were some things going on, obviously, that um, war never does seem to be a good answer, which I think, honestly, I should say, I believe that that's what Sergeant Rock often did. I think I had one comic I picked up at a flea market as a little kid with Joe Kubert art, and it connected to it was a boxing match or two boxers that had fought, one American and one German, and of course the American was based basically on Joe Louis, and it was trying to teach this Nazi that all our blood is the same color, and well, I better not go down any further because now it's getting me all verklempt. Um, so those three books are the things that kind of stick out right now. I have been focusing a little more on reading novels and reading prose. Let me put it that way, and writing prose as well, because as Horror Not Hate is the PDF. The digital version is available right now. Rafael Navarro and I have a 4-page story in there, and I'm thrilled that Raphael has artwork in the opening exhibits of the Lucas Museum in September, late September. So the fact that I get to collaborate on a story with an artist so well recognized, or at least should be well recognized, is exciting. Got a couple of other things in the hopper, maybe some comics, maybe some short stories. We'll see. But they're horror, they're not war. And this is where I get messed up, right? Anyway, so thank you for your patience. In my absence, I did have a very nice, relaxing time in Hawaii, and then I came back and work got in the way and life got in the way. But as you can see, I did get to spend some time at the Magic Castle this last weekend. And it's, I wouldn't say a bucket list item only because I had been there once before, but it's the first time I'd really gone for an evening and seen a bunch of shows and met a few magicians and appropriately dazzled. They're not magicians like in Swamp Thing. They're the people that are essentially incredibly precise choreography with illusions and super fun. Super fun. So, anyway, thank you for indulging that statement. I will get back on track a little bit. Like I said, I haven't even read this week's stack. I'm recording this on a Sunday, and I don't think I've pulled one book out of. I take that back. Hello, Darkness, number 21, because an anthology is easy to just like. Did I read the previous issue? It doesn't matter. There you go. So maybe a fourth book there. Hello, Darkness, number 21. It was the crime issue, and there are a couple of great artists in there, and a couple of great writers. When I say great is because to me, well-known novelist and I think television writer Dwayne Swierczynski did a crime story, and Ryan Samuel Carr, whose work was incredible, adapting George A. Romero's The Amusement Park last year, that was out from Storm King Comics, one of my favorites of last year. Um, they collaborate on a riff on the Cask of Amontillado, acknowledge that it's a riff on the Cask of Amontillado, and I love something that bold but also so beautifully done. So Hello Darkness is always a gimme for me. I'm grateful there. That's a horror anthology I read regularly. I know I need to look at some of the others out there too, but that's the one. So thank you again for indulging through this, and until next time, use your powers for good.